Hi, I see some people are here. We're going to give people 2 or 3 minutes to get into it before I actually start. The people that are here, you might like to put in chat where you're from. Oh, wow, from France. We're going to talk about some French and German resources that for English, for learners who are English speaking learners. I think that's the way to put it. But they're not one of my languages, so je ne parle pas français. I will explain a wee bit more what we have when we start. So I'm just going to give another minute or so for people to come over from maybe where they've been. Well, that's 4 minutes past, so I think I will start, and some people may continue to join in, but I think we've given enough chance, and I will introduce myself. So, hi, I'm Sandy Robb, and I work for the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, which I'll continue to say RZSS from now on, because it's quite a mouthful. And I'm going to talk about science in the language class. Now, I will share my screen with my presentation to start with. Okay, hopefully you do now see a nice title page about science in the language class. And I'm going to give you a rough overview of what it is, how it started, the history behind it, what I actually do for schools now. We, Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, it owns Edinburgh Zoo and Highland Wildlife Park, but that's not all we do. We've actually got projects across the world in the wild where we really want animals to be. And these projects are what I work with in the education programs to do with them. And it's what really started this object of looking at science evolved in the different languages of the countries that we're working in. So You can later go to the RZSS conservation website and you'll get a map like this, which is at that point, it will be an interactive map, and you can click on any of the projects that we're involved in across the world, and it will tell you a wee bit more about them. So RZSS in itself is a big organisation, and when people think, oh, you know, especially school children, when they're thinking about what does RZSS, what jobs could you get at RZSS, then zookeeper is going to come up immediately because we own 2 zoos, and maybe some other things, but we actually employ a whole range of people, and the next slide just shows you a fraction of those people. And it's one of the things I do about when I talk to the school students about careers in languages, then I look at this and I say, you know, well, how many of these people would it be an advantage to have a second or an additional languages in? And it's not just myself, who's the language project coordinator, it's actually a whole load of other people, and we'll see some of them later. So how did this idea about us as a zoological society getting into language happen? It actually started with these guys, the giant panda. Now, before the giant panda, I still worked with the education projects in the countries we were working in. But the first one I was involved in was with the chimpanzees in Uganda. And Uganda, its main language is English. Then I did about penguins in the Falkland Islands, and the language there is English. And the giant pandas came along in that there was a contract, an agreement with RZSS to have a pair of giant pandas in one of its zoos for a 10-year period, and to do research. And not only research and education about them, but also widen that education to more about, you know, China and its culture and its language. And so I thought, hang on, they don't speak English. So what I did was went and did an Open University course in Mandarin and started this link with what I was teaching to learning the Mandarin language as well. And it became such a success. It was called Beyond the Panda, and all across Scotland there was outreach and lessons all about the science and the biology around the giant panda and the environmental science about it, but linked to actually teaching the children some Mandarin while they're doing that. And that was such a success, I began to think, well, there's other projects we have. We have a major project out in South America, which is to do with these chaps, El Armadillo Gigante. And not only that out there, we have El Oso Hormiguero Gigante. And these both are out in South America. And most of the South American countries speak Spanish. So I thought, well, if it worked for Mandarin, we could do this for Spanish as well. And then I thought, well, what's stopping us there? We work out, we don't actually work out in this country, but we work with a breeding program for the Japanese macaques. So a program grew that linked to Japanese. We don't forget about the wee tiny animals. These are the patchouli snails, and they're actually from the French Polynesian Islands. And so we link that to French. And as it's gone on, that was the start of science in the language class, and that we could actually give a variety of language learning linked to where we work. So here's some of the people within our organisation that actually do need a second language, or at least one additional second language for the job they do. Now, Arno is based out in South America, and our South American coordinator out there. Now, his training has always been, you know, his degree, his doctorate is in conservation biology, but he couldn't do his job unless he also knew French and not French, actually. He just happened to know French because you can tell by his name that was French and English are obviously incumbent, but he had to learn Spanish and Portuguese as well, and have to be able to speak in that out there in South America, because most of the project is within, it's within the Pantanal, which stretches over Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay. So he's one great example. Then we have our vet here. She's based at Edinburgh Zoo, but also will do Highland Wildlife Park work. And her second language is Portuguese. And again, that was very helpful for visitors that came over from our South American project, for her to be there to actually help with translations. Then we have Jess, who's in our Discovery and Learning programme, and Jess is able to speak Scottish Gaelic, and she now does or offers outdoor education with Gaelic linked. Lorraine is one of our Highland Wildlife Park rangers, so she will be involved in doing talks to the visitors, and she has the additional languages French and German. And of course, when these visitors come and they're able to, even if it is just simple greetings or just a wee bit more explanation of the talks that she's doing, and she's able to give for that in French or in German to these visitors, it makes them really happy that you've tried to converse with them in those languages. And then it comes to me, a wee bit younger there. And this was me with Mandarin. I actually taught a session where I did a Chinese, a Sichuan actually, tea ceremony. And you might think, well, what's that got to do with learning the science? Yes, it's cultural. Yes, it's got the language in it. But, it actually had a great link to the giant pandas as well. It had the tea was actually, I was serving, was panda poo tea. It's and it would always be a right laugh at the kids when I told them that at the end, because they thought, what? She's drunk panda poo tea. Strictly speaking, it's not a panda poo I'm drinking. It's actually panda poo fertilized tea. It was a man in Sichuan who came up with this idea in 2012 and thought, well, there's actually lots of panda poo in Sichuan. If you don't actually know, one of the things that you learn on the course to do with Mandarin is that pandas, they have to eat bamboo every single day. They eat loads and loads and loads of it. It's not that nutritious a food. So actually, one panda in one day can poo up to 50 times. So lots of poo. If I fertilize my tea plantations with that, I can call it panda poo. That'll be a great laugh and a great success. And it was, actually. So there was that connection there, as well as another good one, because each cup of tea from that first batch that was sold in 2012 was each one cup of tea cost £130. That was extortionate. But during the big special launch, there was people willing to pay that because all the profits went back into the Environment Fund. So two great connections. So Mandarin and Spanish are the languages that I speak a little of, and I have a knowledge of some of the other languages because I create a lot of the resources, which you'll go on to see. And what else do I do? Well, this is the website. There should be a link in the resources for this website. If not, I'll certainly give it to you at the end. It's called Science in the Language Class. In fact, if you Google Science in the Language Class, it should come up, RZSS. And these are the languages that we have online resources to. They're all free for everyone. And there's a varying amount in each language. And I'll show you the website at the end. But the so something, like the Mandarin one is very full, and it's got all sorts of aspects within it. The Spanish and French are growing. German at the moment and Italian actually only have one game within it because we don't actually work in many German-speaking or Italian-speaking countries. But there will be more for German because I've got a special project going on this coming year with that. Now, this is when I go out and outreach. So there's online resources. There's also virtual classes I could do. And then I go out and actually visit the schools. The link here with Mandarin, they're actually in this, if you know any Mandarin, they're actually learning an introduction. So they're saying hello, and my name is, I live in Scotland, I am Scottish, and we do that all in linking to Mandarin. But how they get there is they've learned the science first. So I'll just give you one example. We learn about some animals and which habitat in China that they live in, how they're adapted to that habitat. And then we'll form a sentence like, you know, the tiger lives in the mixed forest and the gibbon lives in the rainforest. And we learn, how would we say that in Mandarin? Well, Changbi Yuan, Zhuzai, Yuling Li. And it means the gibbon lives in the rainforest. So we've done all this for these different animals, and we've learnt that phrase in the middle, Ju Zai. That's the thing that means lives at. So how can we then turn that to more conversational Mandarin that you would want to learn within language learning? And we turn it to, I live in Scotland. So there's always that kind of link. And it's, Wo Ju Zai, Sugelan. And so that's a bit of how I link it. I'll show you in another minute or two how there's other ways we can link to colours and weather and habitats and all sorts of directions and topics that you would learn in the language. That's another one of my outreach. Got lovely games and resources. A lot of it is game-based, board game-based or jigsaws that we do. And then here's some matching up with the French, where we actually learn, we actually compare this. And this has got a bit of a funny, you might think, why are we comparing a panda, which certainly doesn't, a red panda, it doesn't live in a French-speaking country. But we've actually got these comparison programs where this one's called Stripy Tails. Now, I apologize because I know there's French people here, there's Spanish people here, and I will talk a bit. I am not perfect in the languages. I'm still learning a lot of them already, and if I get my pronunciations wrong, I apologize. There is the sound files online that I'll show you are not done by me. So we're comparing two animals with stripy tails, one that does come from China and one that comes from a French-speaking country, Madagascar, the ring-tailed lemur. And the reason we're doing these comparison programs with China is because, like I said, most of the original basis was a China-based program. And we've still managed to keep that China in it and expanding to other languages, and the funding, of course, as well for that, by keeping that link to China. But the whole program can be done all in French, and you don't have to learn Mandarin to do it. So there's some of the matching exercises, which will introduce colours, introduce numbers, and other aspects. Body parts, that comes in a lot. This game here, Lemurs and Ladders, brilliant idea. It's a play on snakes and ladders. We're allowed to do that because snakes and ladders is such an old game. You can have there's no copyright on that anymore. And I actually get, most of the games that you'll find on the website that I mentioned are designed by me. But recently, I've been getting senior pupils, S4 to S6 level, designing these games. And this is one of the first ones from French students who designed this. And when you land on the question marks, you have to get the question card, and some of them will be asking some of the facts about the ring-tailed lemur, and some of them will be asking them, you know, there'll be questions that maybe say, well, you know, the ring-tailed lemur's it's actually got two tongues. That's something they learned. You know that a lemur has two tongues. And then they might say, well, how do you say the word two, or how do you say the word tongue in French? And these are the things that we'll be asking. Another one that was designed by senior students in Spanish was about a tour around Edinburgh Zoo, and they have to collect all these facts about the animals. The animal names are all in Spanish, and before they end, they go round the spiral and exit the gates, and a winner would be the one who'd collected as many facts as possible. And of course, this one doesn't just have to be involved with animals that are from Spanish-speaking countries. This one is, of course, across all the animals within Edinburgh Zoo. And we use, as much as possible, we use dice that have either French or Spanish on them as appropriate. What else do I bring when I go in? Well, I go in with skulls, and we can talk a lot about that. And again, that's where the biology comes in. I'm going to stop sharing there for a moment and tell you a wee bit else of what I can come in and how I join up that learning of language. So I become a panda. Or at least in this hand, I am a giant panda. And then what we can do is we can count the fingers in the giant panda hand. And we'll do it, of course, in Mandarin. I, R, san, si, u. So they've still got 5 fingers. But actually, they've got this special pad here. If you watch the screen, that special pad. There we go. It bends a little. And basically, they don't have an opposable thumb like us. This bendy thumb on us helps us grip things and hold on to things. If you've got straight fingers, you're going to drop it. So it's how the panda adapted to hold its bamboo. And what happens is it puts its 5 straight fingers, which just said not that great for gripping, round the bamboo, and then bends that special finger bone up to grip with the bamboo. So then I'd say, well, actually, to find out what's really happening there is you would have to look at the skeleton of the giant panda. And we'll count the fingers again. I, R, san, si, u. Leo. Leo again showed you his fingers. So now we have 6 fingers. How did that happen? Well, 5 of the fingers are the straight, proper fingers of the giant panda. This one here, on the inside, it is looking a bit like a thumb and it bends a little. And that was that special bone on the other side, that the other bears don't have it. The other bears would just have that. And what it is if you were a giant panda, you wouldn't have this opposable thumb here. It would be going up straight like the rest. Down here at the base of your thumb and the top of your wrist, you have a tiny wee bone. But on giant pandas, it has evolved and grown into this massive bone here that acts like a thumb, but they kind of have 6 fingers to do that. And that is a special adaptation of the bone. And what you'll see at the website in the end is, you know, how we can link that again to language. So that was Mandarin. What about Spanish, where we deal with el oso hormiguero gigante? So my hand becomes the giant anteater. And well, similarly, we can do numbers, but we can also, you know, do some other sentences. Oh, dos carros son muy grande. And what would we have these 2 big claws for? Well, to dig into their ant hills, enable them to eat them. And then we have another model coming out. This is always a laugh with them, where we have a giant anteater head with its massive long tongue. And we can do body parts, you know, los ojos, la lengua, and this sticky tongue. When it's disturbed all the ants with those big claws, the sticky tongue goes in. Loads and loads of ants all over there, hoovers them all up. So we can then expand that into whole sentences. El oso hormiguero gigante puedo comer 30,000 hormigas por día. So, and ask them to work out. Within the lesson, we'll have talked about hormigas, the ants. We'll have talked about the name of the animal. We'll have talked about some numbers, and we'll try and see how they can translate that whole sentence to what it means. So that's just a flavour. I have a number of hands. That's a fraction I have a number of hands of different animals and models that we can show this, especially when I'm out in outreach. Right, what am I going to do? I'm going to share my screen again and go back to that presentation. Now, I will take questions at the end. I thought it might be better to just give me the flow of the whole presentation, and then I will ask you to enter questions into chat or to Q&A. I think there is a room for that. So yes, so these are some of the things that I can go out with when I do in-person outreaches. This one here is, if I also, what I do will be to secondary students, I can do talks on careers of languages and make them realise that whatever career they're going for, it's such an advantage to have an additional language. You've just, earlier I told you of how many people were in RZSS that couldn't do their job without this additional language. And these are people that have not trained in languages. They've not, they've trained as vets, they've trained as biologists, they've trained as educators, but having that additional language has allowed their career to go forward. And that's certainly the case with me as well, because a language project coordinator, it exists in other places, but in a zoological society or any other zoo, it doesn't exist. It's not a job. I actually created my own job. So a way back when I was working on the penguin project and working on the chimpanzee project, and it was all English speaking in those countries. And when it came to these giant pandas starting this, I could have said, oh, there's absolutely no way I'm learning Mandarin. No. And maybe I would still be within RZSS if I had said no to that. But I wouldn't have a job now that I would love. I wouldn't have got the promotion. I wouldn't have a job that I go about teaching science and about languages linked together. And it was, I didn't put a ceiling on my career because I was willing to learn these extra languages. And that would be my message to when I do a presentation to secondary students who are about to, whether they want to choose an additional language or not. I would always say, whatever career path, doesn't matter. They'll think of careers that they want to go into and they'll say, I don't need a language for that. I didn't think I'd need a language for my career, but don't put a ceiling on it. So, what do I offer? For primary schools, there's the online resources. They're free for across everywhere. P4 to P7, so mainly in Scotland, but an equivalent in England are workshops at the moment in Spanish, French, and Mandarin. But I would also add there that there's a distance to travel. They're free, but they're free in all over Scotland or north of England. So sorry to those who are a bit further south or elsewhere, but you do have the online resources, and it may be possible to do some virtual sessions. They're never as good as sort of getting the hands on these models, and hands on literally. There's a Mandarin 3-week virtual course at the moment, which goes 3 weeks, and then they actually get an in-person visit after those 3 weeks. So it means we can expand a bit more. And the Spanish one is due to start next year on that as well. For secondary, online resources, again, available worldwide, anywhere you can do with online resources. S1 is to or equivalent, again, workshops. These are literally the same workshops that I do for upper primary with just a wee tweak on the level. And again, limited to Scotland, north of England. Careers with languages presentations, I've mentioned that. And then these developing the young workforce language experiences for senior pupils or equivalent level. And that is, again, where I have got them to use their sound files for me. Students have done their sound files, which appear on the website, and they create at least one of the resources or the games. You saw two of them within my presentation there. The reason we can offer free within the, as I say, within the limited distance is thanks to all of these supporters. And at the bottom of there is my email if you wanted to get in contact with me. Now, I'm going to stop that, but also now show you the actual website. Now, is there, the website isn't linked to resources. Could we have that in chat? All right, I thought I'd linked it. Right, what I'm going to do now is escape from that, hang on, and go to the website, and I'll copy that. Oh, was that somebody putting in for me? I don't know whether that is. Why am I not able to see? Type my message here. Paste. It's going to be in a big long. Why am I not able to send that? Right, return. That's it. I don't know whether you've managed to get it twice there. It's that should link to you now, and I'm going to take you there now as well, because I'm going to share my screen again, and it should come up. So you're looking for something, and I'm going to share the sound this time. Yep, share. That looks like this. And I say, if you have any problems, Google Science in the Language class, and it should come up if you Google all of that. So here are our boxes. You enter into any of them. So we'll enter into Spanish, for instance, and you get a whole list of things that are available. Giants is a similar comparison program that I told you about with the red pandas. This one is with the giant panda, the giant anteater compared. But down here below that, we get a video and an audio in Spanish from Arno, who's working out there, and lots of other games that are also linked to it. So they're downloadable games, whereas these are, click on any of these and you get online games. I've got some of them already set out here. So we've got all these are ones which are senior students that have done this. And when you hear it, they're not perfect, but actually I like this.
Uno.
Dos.
And so on, and here we go.
El oso hormiguero gigante tiene 5 dedos.
Like I say, yeah, they're not absolutely perfect, but what's great actually is that for Mandarin, most of this is done by native students, because I work with Southwest Jiutong University in Chengdu. But with the Spanish and the French, you will hear senior Scottish students who are studying the language and taking a qualification in it, doing my sound files. So it's a great work experience for them. But also when I'm doing this and working with the upper primaries on it, they will all say to me, well, and it's native speakers, they'll say, of course they can speak it, they can grow up with it, it's hard for us. And then I can show them, but actually, these are your peers. These are people that if you work hard in it for the next few years, you'll be speaking just like them. And it'll go through explanations of it and things like that, and also give them some wee games from now and again. We've also got there we go, with the points, and it'll come out with
La nariz.
the names of the body parts, but also something about them. And they've got an excellent sense of smell because they've got this long nose, but of course they've terrible eyesight because they have such small eyes for such a tiny.
El ojo.
And you can go through a lot of these. When you go into the Mandarin one, you actually get, let's go back to you'll get a whole host of resources in Mandarin. This is just because Mandarin has been going on for 10 years. There's been a lot developed in this. We've had a lot of money input from the Mandarin side of things. So you will see that that is the biggest resources. We're hoping that Spanish will now begin to expand into something like this. And there you go, and you hear all about that. Giant panda's hands, you can count the fingers first, but then the skeleton explains about it, and then I'll have
大熊猫有6根手指。
and that's what I said, but that's it said now with a native speaker. Going back to science and language class, like I say, you can click on any of these and you can get what's available within them. Sound files don't exist in all of them yet, but they will, again, it'll start to grow. Now, I'll stop sharing and ask you if you want to ask me anything. What do you think, and what will you, do you like what you see? Will you use these resources? Oh, Q&A, I think I have to go into this. Could you also develop share materials in English so that we can use them in right, yeah, that's interesting. At the moment, we've no plans for that because there is capacity as well. I think I'm fully booked usually a lot of the time. So the other thing, even if you are in the Scotland or north of England, where I would actually go to you, then I would say to you, book well in advance. It is only me who's the language project coordinator within RZSS, so it's only me developing all these programs, and there is therefore there's no plans at the moment to expand my team of me. So there is a capacity problem. Oh, thanks for these comments that are coming up in chat. Yes, it is a shame that we can't go further afield. Again, even if there was a charge that we had to go beyond a certain distance because we're covered with those distances in our funding, it probably wouldn't have, again, capacity would be the problem of the amount of time it would take me to get down there, even if there was a charge. And I think the charge could be prohibitive if you add all the expenses on that. But definitely use the resources because they're all there. And definitely think about, again, capacity-wise. But I mean, there might be time. I take things on a first come, first serve booking system at the moment. So if it was a virtual session that you wanted, then that is of course possible. Or further afield, I mean. Yeah, Mandarin lunch. Yeah, I'm doing with up north of Scotland, I'm doing one of the 3-week courses with a Mandarin lunchtime club. For them, and they will get their visit as well at the end. Did I ask? I think most of you put in that you were all further afield. Did I ask? Is there anybody actually in Scotland or north of England? Or are we all further south? Yeah. Right. Well, I hope that you will make use of the resources. They're there to be used, and they are available for everyone. You can also give them as, because you don't even have to log in as a teacher or anything, so you can give them out as homework, little, some of the exercises, when you look at them, are little 5-minute exercises. And for us, it's you using that resources. We're actually wanting you to not only know about the language and help your language learning in students, but actually the profile of RZSS and what we're doing and the environmental science and making aware of the threats, because you'll see within all that there'll be things that to do with the threats that are involved and what we're doing and what work we're doing to be able to save these species. So that knowledge getting out there is great for us. Just, is there anybody who I've missed? Have I got all the chat and all the thing? All the questions? Nobody's got anything else? Well, thank you. Thank you for coming along. And yes, if that's really it, if nobody's got anything else they want to ask me about the resources or the work, then, you know, there's loads to get through. Yes, I must admit there isn't loads in every language on that website. You'll find in German and Italian at the moment, there's just one game there, but German has got a set. I've got 2 schools working on projects in German this year, and that is the senior students developing games and making more sound files for me. So German will expand later next year. So that's something to know about. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Again, maybe in the future, because if you saw at the end there, one of our partners is SILT, they run at Strathclyde University. They're kind of the international teaching of languages, and they have expanded in Arabic. And because we work closely with them, it might be something we'll look into. But I'll have to just answer the same as before. Capacity might be the problem. Thanks. So I'll stick around for another few minutes if there's anybody else who wants to ask a question. Thank you very much for coming along, listening to me and seeing Science in the Language class. Thank you. Thank you, and same to you. Yes.